So my name is Michael. I'll be hosting tonight's meeting as we talk about our different classes for the 2021 fall semester. On the slide right here, you see we have two different organizations. So first, there's the nonprofit that we've recently established for teaching. It's pronounced FTER. So it's the Foundation for Technological Education and Research. And then right below that is the associated FTC team that this all started with, which is 11697, okay? And next, Patrick is going to talk a little bit about our robotics team.
Yeah, so a few of our members are part of the robotics team TECH-Tonic 11697. A little bit about us is we have around 10 members, all ranging from grades 9 to 12, so all in high school. And our goal is to promote STEM and STEM education through teamwork, public speaking, and skills imperative for all careers. A few achievements we've received through FTC are the Rockwell Collins Innovate Awards, FTC Control Awards, FTC Design Awards, FTC Motivate Awards, and we also advanced the Worlds in 2019. From the 2018 to 2019 season, we won the 2019 NJ State Championship and advanced to the Detroit Worlds Championship. We ended up placing 78 out of 160 international teams, which is about top 3% worldwide. In the 2019 to 2020 and the 2020 to 2021 season, we qualified for the NJ State Championship. But although due to COVID, it was not held. And our software team has also won the Control Award, which is given to the best autonomous program at each competition for every season since the team was founded in 2016.
Right. So about the FTC team that this started from. So from when we were a lot smaller back in March 2020, when we first started our teaching program, then we had most of our teachers coming from the FTC team. But as we've expanded, the focus has grown more on to the teaching team as a whole, which is why we've set up the nonprofit organization FTER. So we founded this organization in order to create STEM learning opportunities for people across the globe, hence our extensive use of online learning platforms like Zoom. And we've aimed it at promoting scientific research and technological innovation through mentorship in science and engineering research competitions. So this is a lot of what our teaching is about. We have this overall goal in mind, and this is why we do what we do, essentially. So here's a little bit about our teaching team first. So I'm Michael. So I used to be last year I was the president on the FTC team. I've since graduated from then. So I will be moving on to other things. And I'm going to be starting as a freshman at NYU Stern very soon in the new BTE, or Business Technology and Entrepreneurship programs.
Oh, Sean not here?
Yeah, he's not here. You can go ahead.
Okay. Hi, I'm Stanley. I am a third year at Carnegie Mellon, and I'm majoring in math and CS, and I teach Python.
Okay. I don't believe the other people are here. Edison, would you be able to introduce yourself then?
Hi, I'm Edison, and I've been programming for about 4 years. I'm experienced in Java and Python, and I'm a East Brunswick High School senior.
Yeah, thank you. So if you look at just the rest of the slide, some of our newer additions include Frank, who we just interviewed really recently, and he is going to be going into computer science at USC as a graduate student. And then we also have Rachel, who taught some of the Java classes alongside me and Richard, and she's going to be a freshman at MIT. Okay, then Alex, who Stanley's really close with, is also at CMU. Okay, and then we have Sean, who also does Python and Java, and he's going to be a freshman at Purdue. So as a whole, since we started our teaching program back in March of last year, we've accumulated a lot of experience. So we have over 600 collective teaching hours, and that's through the 29 total class sessions that we've run, from including robotics, Python, and Java programs. So that includes our different tiers. For example, with robotics, we're going to talk about both beginner and advanced programs, and then the new additions as well with the project courses for Python and Java. And throughout all of this, throughout the past 1.5 years or so, we've reached over 450 total students, all thanks to being able to network through Zoom. So next, here's our EV3 robotics class, which Leon and Patrick will talk a little bit about.
Yeah, so for the EV3 robotics class, there are two main programs that we use. One of them is the EV3 programmer, or known as Lego Mindstorms EV3. And it's basically some scratch programming that we start the kids off with in order to teach them about programming concepts. The other program we use is a robot simulation software called Virtual Robotics Toolkit. Normally, a license for 1 year would be about $65, but since we're able to buy in bulk, we usually cut that around to $30 per a person. And the Virtual Robotics Toolkit is very helpful for teaching students to code online, as it lets us basically simulate a real robot, but on the computer, which is really helpful for virtual teaching. So for our robotics beginner class, generally students can just hop right in. They don't really need any programming experience, and it's supposed to be really beginner friendly. And at the bottom, you'll see some class schedules as well as tuition. So if you guys want, you can take a picture of this stuff, but we'll definitely come back to this later. All right, so a bit about the beginner class. So the point of our robotics classes isn't just to teach materials, it's also trying to teach application. So at the beginning, we start off with some basic logic structures, how to move the robot around, as well as how to use some sensors. And after that, we get into the meat of the class, which deals with the class projects. And these really give the students a chance to apply their knowledge to these different projects. Some of the projects we have are the sumo competition and the maze project, where the students have to use the different sensors they learned during the class in order to complete the projects. We also have the passcode projects, which is a project that more relates to ways that you can use programming in real life.
All right, and moving on to the advanced class, a few of the topic list materials that we'll be teaching include variables and arrays. We'll also be going over logic gates as well as randomization and comparison. And we'll also talk a bit about functions, which are called myblocks in EV3, and lastly, speed ramping. We also have a variety of class projects that we'll be going through. A few of them are the reaction time testing game, and multiplayer sweep, and stop motion, as well as Jeopardy. And I also have a demo for you guys. Yeah, so I also have a demo for you guys regarding one of the projects that the students will be working on. All right, so as you guys can see on screen, this is the reaction time testing project. And the point is to test how fast a user can react and click a button. So the premise here is the code is going to change the light, the green light right here into red. And then after it turns to red, I'm going to try to click the middle button as fast as I can. So if I run the program, once we wait for this to turn red, and I click the button, it will tell me how long it took me to press the button. And it's fairly accurate, as you can see, up to the 1000th digit.
Right. I think that's really cool, honestly. And because I taught EV3 as well when we first started out, I'd just like to add a little bit about what we do with the program. So Patrick touched on the speed ramping concept, which is actually one of the techniques that we use in our FTC robotics programming as well, to ensure that our robot moves as accurately as possible. So speed ramping is essentially, you can dynamically control how fast the robot moves, and then you get it. So if you start slow and then you ramp it up, or you move it to a desired target speed, where it stays for most of the time that it's moving forward. So throughout our EV3 robotics classes, both beginner and advanced, we focus a lot on applying the different techniques and also hardware systems that we implement for real robotics, and we teach them through Virtual Robotics Toolkit. So you really do get the full experience, even if it is all just virtual. Okay, so now we can go through a brief Q&A period just for the EV3 classes. So if you have any questions, then feel free to either type them in the chat, or you can also ask them out aloud.
Yes, Christopher?
Do you have to get it by yourself? If you're going to participate in the robotics class, do you have to get the EV3 set by yourself, or is it going to be provided?
So since we're only doing it virtually, we're only gonna you'll only need the Lego Mindstorm Programmer and Virtual Robotics Toolkit, both of which will be provided to you when you register, or if you register, sorry.
Yeah, for some common questions, there's an FAQ doc. So I sent it to, Patrick and Leon. Would you guys be able to pull that up then? Okay, and then, sorry, just also one more thing to add. So for the QR code that you see on the bottom right of the slide, if you scan that, then it brings you right into our WeChat group for the teaching organization. And then that's where you can ask any further questions if you have them after the presentation's over. So Patrick and Leah will be going over the FAQ doc. Yeah, just give them a second, but they'll be talking about it really shortly. Okay. So there's one question in chat right now. So Leon, would you be able to take that one then?
Yeah. No, so if your child already took the beginner class, they can just go right into the advanced class. If they're afraid that they might have forgotten some of the stuff in the beginner class, the Google Classroom should still be available for those classes, so for the beginner class. And a lot of the review materials are on there, so you can look those over before going into the advanced class.
All right, and what I just screen shared right now is a few common questions asked about our robotics course. So I can get a little bigger and we'll go through them one by one. All right, so first question is a general introduction about the robotics course. As we mentioned before, many popular programs about robotics include FRIST, EV3, and VEX robotics for students. These are all standardized AI experiences for the students and are recognized by the public. Our program primarily works with EV3, which is similar to Scratch, and it uses logic as well as robotics foundation to control the robot using Virtual Robotics Toolkit. All right, so next, Leon and I can alternate going through questions and answers for this slide.
All right, so which languages will be used in this class? I touched a bit on this earlier, but we're going to be using a block programming similar to Scratch, and we will teach both languages robotics knowledge in the class.
So if your student has prior experience and they want to know which class is best for him or her, we can set up a one-on-one meeting to talk about how much the student knows. And you can contact us via the email shown here, mshen766@gmail.com.
So some of you guys may have questions about the differences between a VRT simulation software and using a physical robot. So there's a bunch of advantages to using a virtual robotics toolkit. The first is that it's a lot cheaper than buying physical hardware. So the entry level for a Lego Mindstorms kit can go from $300 and upwards. And a license key for this class would just cost around $30. So it makes the barrier for entry a lot lower, so that if your child isn't really sure whether they're going to be super invested into robotics, they can just buy a license key and it isn't as much of a upfront cost.
So how much does Virtual Robotics Toolkit cost? As Leon just touched on, normally it's $65, although we are able to bring it down to $30 via a group discount.
So you can use the VRT software beyond the robotics classes and after the pandemic. the VRT license key lasts for 1 year. So you'll still have access to it for 1 year after the class. And after it, if you would like, you can still renew it. It just costs additional money to buy another license key.
So what operating system does Virtual Robotics Toolkit support? Virtual Robotics Toolkit is compatible on Windows 8.1 and up. So more or less all Windows versions are compatible with Virtual Robotics Toolkit. It's also compatible with Mac High Sierra, but it's not compatible with Mac Mojave and up.
And for how long classes will be, each class will be 1.5 hours for 15 weeks, I believe. So I think that is a typo on the doc.
All right, and there are no age restrictions for beginner or advanced. It purely depends on how much programming and robotics knowledge you have. Although most of our students are about 4th to 6th grade or higher.
So if your kid ever needs help outside of class, we can schedule one-on-one meetings with them. We also provide Discord support. So if they have any questions, they can ask it on Discord. And in addition, we also have a Google Classroom where we post materials for every class. So you can also review the materials through Google Classroom.
All right, and as mentioned earlier, a student can definitely skip from beginner to advanced. It just depends on how much knowledge they have. So if the student thinks they have enough knowledge, we can set up a one-on-one meeting with a teacher, and there'll be like a quick interview to see if the student's fit for the advanced class.
Okay, all right, so next we're going to be hearing about the Python classes from Charles and Stanley.
You can go to the next slide. Okay, so general class information is that students will learn how to program Python using a combination of the Thani IDE and Google Colab. So Google Colab is basically kind of like Google Drive, but there's programming on it, and we're going to use that for Python. Right now, Python is one of the most popular programming languages in the world, and this is due to a number of reasons, which I'll talk about in the next slide. And no programming experience is required for Python beginner. And right below it, you can see there's the class schedule for Python beginner and Python advanced. So it's pretty similar to the robotics courses, but it's on different days and different times. Okay, so so this coming fall, we're opening up a Python project course. Sorry, I'm a little sick. Please stand by for that. So we created this course actually because students start to ask what to do next after taking the Python Advanced and the Python Beginner courses. So as a result, we decided to create this Python project course in order for these students to get more practice with Python, like designing algorithms or games. And we've decided to, and I'll talk about more about the project course in a couple of slides, but that's basically the general information. And so let's get into the Python beginner course first. So in the Python beginner course, we talk about basic data types, variables, conditional statements, loops, functions, classes, and objects. And these are basically the building blocks that everyone needs to learn in order to start programming Python. And then we have these class projects. We have MadLibs, a rock, paper, scissors game, and then a Kahoot and programming competition, and then a final project. And for the final project, we're generally really flexible with this. And in the past, we've done a dodge obstacles game using Pygame, which is like the car photo you see. We've done a combination of mini games, which you can see with the Connect 4 and the Snake game, and it can change based on how the class is going. Okay, next one. So for the advanced class, we start talking about, we review about basic operators and strings, and then we review lists, and then we start talking about 2D lists, which is just slightly more complicated. And then we talk about sets, dictionaries, and a big O notation. Big O notation is basically something to determine the runtime of a program. And then we learn about Flask. So in this course, we, sorry, in this course, some projects we go over is we learn how to draw flags. We code a basic Agario game, and we code Tetris, and we create websites using Flask. Okay, yeah, that's the advanced course. And then in the project class, we've organized this class to focus on specific modules. And we do this because Python is really popular, partly because of add-ons or modules. These are basically packages of code that can be downloadable or built into Python that we can access. And this makes Python really, it's really reliable and allows us to use it in a bunch of different professions without having to learn too much of new code. So in this course, we learn about the turtle module, the time module, and Pygame. And using those modules, we create a Caesar cipher. We create OSU Lite, which is basically a rhythm game. We'll do a demonstration with that right after the slide. A speed typer, Pong, and Galaga. And we also have a bunch of other projects we've prepared that we can also learn if we have time. So Stanley will do a demo right now of OSU Lite.
Yeah, so I'm gonna screen share. Okay, so this is one of our projects that we have prepared for the Python project class. And it's not very complicated. It's just, it's a rhythm game minus the rhythm part. We don't really have music right now, but we can add it if there's time. It might look simple, but basically the whole idea of having like these project courses is to like have the students develop the fundamentals. Like, obviously you're not learning Python to like code games in the future. By like coding this, we're getting the students to think, and then in the future, they might be able to like use this module, in this case, Pygame, like to make their own projects. So, yeah.
Hi, I have a question with regard to the timing. So if we have a conflict, a time conflict, and my son is not going to be able to attend, let's say, a couple of classes in the beginner Python class, do you think it's going to be difficult for him to keep up?
So make sure to, so we actually record the classes. So if a student misses a class, we can just tell us and we will send the recording to you.
Okay, he just won't have the access to the instructor, right? But
yes,
there's the recording.
So he won't have live, actually no.
Mm-hmm.
Like robotics, we also have a Discord support time in Python. So after like watching the recording, he can always ask us on Discord if he has any questions.
That's also for Python class too?
Yes, it's in all classes.
Did you say Discord? What was that? Sorry.
So do you know like messages, right?
Oh, yeah.
Discord is like a souped up messages. You can do video calls, phone calls, and there's chatting. So it's basically just a platform for us to communicate with the students outside of class.
Okay. Oh, another question. How big is your class, generally speaking?
So during the fall, it changes. I think I would expect around 10 students, but of course it changes every year.
And each class has one instructor, right? So
usually, so for the Python beginner and advanced course, we have one main instructor and then 1 or 2 TAs. So we have like a number of teachers who can jump in at any point. And for projects, for the project course, we have, for each module, we have a different teacher or a different main teacher for that. So that's kind of like the idea for the teacher-wise.
Great, thank you.
No problem.
Okay. All right. So I'm going to be one of the Java teachers for the fall alongside Richard. So we'll be covering the 2 courses that we'll be offering. And first up is the beginner class. So our IDE or programming environment of choice is Eclipse. And then depending on whatever final project the students choose, for example, for the Discord bot, we had to use another online programming IDE called Replit. So we'll use Eclipse and then just any number of other softwares depending on the project chosen. This is a completely beginner-friendly course. So we start at the very basics with things like variables and collecting user input, and then we move on to the more advanced parts, even going to a bit of inheritance and polymorphism. Even though this is much more content focused compared to something like our project classes, we still make sure to integrate application throughout. So we have homework after every class, like I believe Python does as well. And then throughout the class as well, we have practice problems during. So say after every concept, we'll give a 4 to 5 minute practice problem for the kids, just so they can practice typing something in and then getting more familiar with it as well. So the overall class schedule, here's the pricing information, by the way, on the right. So it's similar to the other classes we've seen already. It's 1.5 hours, and then we do it for every Saturday for 10 weeks. Okay, and just like the other classes, we also have a 1 hour live Discord support period per week. Right? So if you have any questions after class that you didn't get to ask, then you can always jump in there and we'll be there for you. Okay, Christopher, I'm going to ask you to hold your question until the Q&A period for Java. Okay, thank you.
Okay.
Okay, so I'm going to introduce the project class. So same deal with the beginner class. We're still using Eclipse, which is going to be our primary IDE. So basically all our programming is going to be happening in the same exact environment as the beginner class. Like just similar to the Python class, our projects class, our classes are more focused on application, pretty much entirely in application. But we also will, have some, time to review certain topics if, students are struggling on a particular topic. We recommend you to take Java Beginner before taking the projects class because it does require a solid understanding of the core concepts. And it's better if you have previous, we require you to have previous programming experience. So the schedule is right there if you guys want to take a picture, but it's pretty similar to the beginner class, except it's on Sunday. And it's over 10 weeks. So, and the pricing information for both the Python projects class and the Java projects classes right here. Same deal, we have a Discord support time for the projects class as well. But I think, as Charles mentioned before, it's going to be more fast-paced compared to like your beginner class because we're focusing a lot more on application and we aren't so much on content. Though, of course, we will still review certain topics as necessary.
Okay, so here's a little bit more information about our beginner class. So in terms of the topic list or overall what we cover, we start out with variables and basic data types. So for example, the difference between an integer and a string, and then we move up all the way to conditionals and loops. And finally, towards the end of the class, we get into objects. So that's objects and classes. So that would go under inheritance. And then also how you use them in conjunction with methods to create very powerful and flexible code. So if you look at the top right, I've included a screenshot of a project that I did with kids in class. So the name of the class, if you can make it out, is laptop, and then I have a few different attributes of variables as well as methods. So by doing interactive exercises like this with the kids, so these actually suggest what I put into the class, they're able to see how I construct the whole class from the very bare bones declaring it to having methods and then also fleshing it out with attributes, okay? And then with the class projects, we have a Jeopardy competition that the kids always get very excited about. And then we split the kids into 2 teams and they have to race and answer the questions as quickly as possible. So for this, I think the way we do it is really unique, and I'm proud of the fact that we have different categories. So not just concept ones, but also programming, and then also we came up with one recently called Spot the Error. So there will be a program and then you have to figure out what's wrong with it. The screenshot below right here is from the final project that we did in our first session of Java Beginner, which was making a Discord bot. So you see right here that there's a few commands, and those are from when the kids actually tried out each other's bots, and then they were able to see the different commands that their classmates had programmed. But as for all beginner class sessions, the final project is chosen by the students. So we go based off of what we do, and we offer them a few different options.
Okay, so just one more thing to add for the beginner class. Just in general, the topics that we cover are quite similar to the Python class because these are basically programming fundamentals. But of course, we're going to be doing it with Java and Java syntax. And just in general for Java, what's I guess a little bit special about it is that if you do take a AP Computer Science class in high school, this is the language that you are going to be learning everything in and programming in. And as for the topics that we cover in the beginner class, it's basically the majority of the topics in the AP Computer Science A curriculum. And if we go to the projects class, we're going to be focusing, of course, on projects and applications. So, and we're also going to be covering a few additional topics that are a little bit more advanced. So for the projects class, we're going to be working with multiple. Yeah, so if you could, okay, yeah, so we're going to be working with multiple files. Okay, so normally in the beginners class, we're going to be basically working with a single file with one class and everything like that. But in the projects class, we're actually going to have multiple files interacting with each other to create basically one bigger application. We're going to be going over constructors, method overriding, so a lot of stuff dealing with class design. We're going to go over array lists and 2D arrays, which are new data structures that we'll get to learn that are pretty darn valuable if you're going to be creating or doing like, I don't know, maybe in the future, like app development in Java. And we're actually also going to be using or introducing Java graphics, which is sort of like using JFrame and JPanel through Java Swing, which is sort of like the Pi game for Java. And as for the products that we're doing, we actually have a variety of projects. So we have some that are basically like text-based games. We also have sort of like simulation projects, so we can basically simulate like a bank account inside of Java, inside of our program. We also have sort of like dice games that you might play, and we also have graphics-based games such as Snake, and also it's not here, but tic-tac-toe as well. I guess if you look on the pictures on the right, it doesn't look like too much is happening for the Snake game, but that is a Snake game using Java graphics. And below that is code and basically the output for a game called Bunko, which is a dice game sort of. And of course, we're going to be going over that. Yeah, so just in general, the projects class is going to be much more focused on application, but that doesn't mean we're not going to be like covering any new content. So we're going to basically introduce new concepts by sort of like learning by doing. And of course, if students feel, or we feel that students are a little bit weaker on a certain topic, we will spend the time to cover and make sure they understand it, because in the end, our projects class is more about quality over quantity in terms of how many projects we do. So I see a question in the chat. So for the ID, so for Python, we use Thonny. I can type it in chat, I guess, if you're curious about the spelling. And for Java, we use Eclipse. So if you're interested in that, we can you can check it out. But yeah, so that's basically our projects class, and we use the same IDE for both the beginner and the projects class for Java.
Yeah, so I'd just like to add one more thing to add on to what Richard said before we go to the questions for Java. So I think Richard brought up a really important point when talking about the beginner classes for both Python and Java. So if you look at the topic lists, like he said before, they are really similar. So we're teaching a lot of the same concepts, but just in different languages. And I think if you're a little bit stuck, maybe between choosing either Python or Java, I think there's no really a right choice because there's certainly different strengths and weaknesses that each language has. For example, Python is a lot easier to learn. It's more beginner friendly, but Java is taught in AP Computer Science. And then also because it's stricter on the syntax, you maybe get a bit more programming discipline. But either way, both are excellent languages, and they're also great jumping points for if you want to branch out into other languages as well. I can tell you that from having learned a little more about languages like Dart and Kotlin recently this summer, that Python and Java both help you immensely when you want to learn other programming languages. Okay, so